Hey guys, it's Sutonia here, and today I'm going to be talking about a pirate frigate, which is the Cruor, and I'm also going to be using a Lowsec style fit for it. So the Cruor is the Blood Raider pirate faction frigate. In the highs, I'm using two small focused beam lasers. This is just to do as much DPS to scram range as possible. This gives you an 8.2k optimal, and with heat you can knock out 200 DPS or so on this ship. I think it's really important to get some damage on the Cruor because the damage on the Cruor is quite lacking compared to the other pirate frigates, and even though it is a control ship that's designed about breaking your opponent's tank, I definitely think you want at least this amount of DPS, like 200 DPS to scram Kai range is pretty nice. Secondary, we're using two Corpii A-type small energy Nosferatus, just A-type per Nos. It's really important to run A-type, I think, on this ship, because they give you 9km optimal range. The Tech 2 Nos only has 5km optimal range. Obviously, we're scram kiting and we want to kite at beam range as much as possible, so having the 9km optimal on these is pretty important. Next, I'm just going. My mids are pretty boring. I'm going just for normal Tech 2 Afterburner. You can feel free to pimp this out a bit if you want. I'm also going for a compact web, and I'm also going for a faint scoped warp scrambler. Now, the Blood Raider does have a bonus to Stasis Webifier range. I have a 20km web instead of a 10km web. It's double web range. You can pimp out the web if you want, but since I'm fighting in scram range anyway, the whole point of this is I decided not to pimp out the web. Kadari Navy web, or Dread Goose's web is about 50 million, I think. And that would give you a 26km web cold, and you could heat it up a bit further. The only purpose of the web in this fit is mostly to force kiters to disengage. I got attacked by a few Tristans, Slicers, Condors, etc. in this that got away because the crew is quite slow. And if you just heat your web on them and shoot them with Aurora, you can basically force them to go away. Or sometimes they even die if they're not able to warp out. So it's nice to have the web, I think, just for the disengage. But I didn't pimp out the web because the fit itself is already quite expensive, 181 million for the entire fit. But it's up to you. You can pimp out the web too if you want. You can also pimp out the scram, but this scram has the same range as my max beam range, so I decided against it. But again, Tech 2 Scram here would be nice if you can get the CPU from somewhere, or, Kadari Navy Scram probably. But that would bring the fit up to about 250 million. I've got a Tech 2 damage control here. Again, if you want to pimp out the Scram, you can maybe drop this down to a IFFA. But the buffered tank on the Cruor is actually quite light. It only has about 5.4k EHP, which is about the same as like a medium shield extender frigate with a damage control, so I would definitely recommend going for the Tech 2 damage control for now, just because you want a bit of buffer. You need some time space to work with before your Nosferatu start taking effect. Next, I would go with just got a Tech 2 heatsink here, pretty standard. Like I said, I want to hit that 200 DPS at 20 to scram kite range benchmark. I then just got a Refuge adapted nano plating. You can go like a dark blood plating here, but it doesn't really add all that much, in my opinion, unless you're gonna go for the really expensive 70 mil A-type platings. But then again, the fit's already quite expensive, and I want to keep it semi-reasonable, even though this is this is a Cruor that costs the same as a faction cruiser, essentially, like a standard Omen Navy issue fit. And I've also got a A-type small rep. I think the A-type rep is pretty important on this fit. Like I said, I didn't want to pimp out anything that was unnecessary, I felt, but I really feel like the A-type rep is important. This A-type rep costs around 45 to 50 million. The Centii one that I'm using, is 45 to 50 million, but the Corpii one, which has the exact same stats, is 70 million for some reason. I don't really understand that. Also, it has buy-orders that are more than the Centii rep too. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. If you do want to save money, you can buy the Serpentis Dead Space rep, which is it's called Corelli A-type rep. It's not as strong as this one, but the sort of thing that it has is it uses less cap, but it also reps less than the Centii and Corpii A-type reps. But it is much cheaper too. It's only about 25 mil for that A-type rep. So if you don't mind taking a bit of a performance hit to save yourself, 20, 25 mil ISK, then to make the fit a bit more reasonable, then go for it. Otherwise, you could go with a small ancillary, but I don't really like the small ancillary on this fit because the whole point of this fit is you're kind of going for like a control sustain playstyle, and small ancillary will cap itself out after a while, and that will pretty much prevent you from fighting a lot of the like capless weapon fits like rockets and autocannons. Next, I'd recommend I'm just going with Tech 2 resistance rigs because they increase your buffer while also increasing your rep power at the same time, effectively. And this gives you just like really nice solid resists. My lowest resist is explosive 64%, but then I also have 66% kinetic and EM and 71% thermal. So pretty solid resistance profile, which helps keep my rep running. So to talk about the bonuses specifically, as I mentioned, it does get a web range bonus on the Mimitar frigate bonus, which will take your 10-kilometer web up to 20 kilometers. If you buy a 13-kilometer faction web, it's 26 kilometers, etc. This is, again, we're not really focusing too much on this bonus. It's mostly just nice to be able to heat the web on a kiting ship like a Slice or a Condor or a Tristan or something, and then you can just shoot them with Aurora and get them to disappear if they're holding you down at long range. Mar frigate bonus is the 15% bonus to energy Nosferatu and energy neutralizer drain amount. This is a really powerful bonus, and with this bonus, essentially, with these 2 Dead Space Nosferatus, we have the same as like 1.5 normal newts. So even though we're running Nosferatu on this fit, we're actually draining more than, like, I don't know, if you imagine like a small newt on any other ship that's heated all the time, it's kind of like that in terms of power, which is nice. And also we can also heat these. And we also have on the roll bonus 100% bonus to small energy turret damage. Essentially, we only have 2 turrets, but the double damage. This brings the DPS up to just over Tormentor level. Of course, the Tormentor also has the extra drone. So we do about the same DPS as a sort of Tormentor, maybe slightly more. But the main thing that we got going for us is the Super Nosferatu, the ability to disengage more from Kiters. In the drone bay, I'd recommend you use a Warrior 2 or a Hornet 2. Just because we're already doing a lot of EM thermal damage here. So it's nice to have a bit of, since we can't choose our damage type on this ship, it's nice to just do explosive or kinetic damage somehow. So Hornet 2 or Warrior 2, just so if you end up fighting someone with a reactive armor hardener, I mean, you should be able to, nos it off eventually. But it's nice just to have like alternative damage sources, or I don't know, maybe if you take a fight against something like, I don't think you'd ever fight a Wolf or a Jaguar in this, but maybe if you're feeling brave, or maybe if it's just something like, I don't know, a Saber, maybe, I don't know. It's nice just to have the alternative damage source. Not that you'd want to engage those ships in general, but it's nice just to have the alternative damage sometimes. And the special of the Blood Raider ship, this is the main reason to fly this ship, is the energy Nosferatu will always drain the targeted ship's capacitor. Normally, when you use Nosferatu, it only drains from another ship if you have less cap than them. But with the Blood Raider bonus, they will always drain, and in this way, the Nos are basically turned into newts in a way that are also increasing your capacitor, which is really, really powerful. Like I mentioned, it's about 1.5 newts from a normal ship that we're doing, but also it's even what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is that the Nosferatu are really powerful because you can stagger them, and you can just like keep someone's capital. Like if they have a cycle time of 2.5 seconds. If you just if you just like hit one after 1 second, like you hit one, wait a second, hit the other one, you're basically just like keeping someone just permanently at 0 cap because it's just cycling so fast. With a normal new, it's got a 6-second cycle time unless you heat it. Whereas with these Nosses, basically they just come in every 1 second. Like once you've got the initial cap pool drained out, you can basically just permanently keep someone at 0 cap, and that's what we're kind of going for here. We're also just increasing our cap the entire time. We can afford to run our A-type rep the entire time. As you can see here, it is actually 100% cap stable while we're draining from someone. With just one Nos, so it's almost cap stable, but not quite. It can run for 5 minutes. But I definitely would go for the second one, just because it allows you to just run your A-type rep the entire time, and also like I said, you can stagger them constantly. Some people might want to go for a small Nos and a small New. I think the double Nos combo is a lot easier to focus on, and it's a lot. I think it's a lot better because of the like that just like 1 second interval of suck. So like you just like keep turning off their modules like all the time, and it's really annoying. Like they can't even spam their guns basically. So yeah, that's the Cruor. I think the Cruor is pretty underrated. I also think it's one of the I'd say it's probably slightly under the bar for pirate frigates. I think it's just kind of weird because it has like a weird style. But I think that I'm spending 181 mil on this ship. If you spent the same kind of pimp on something like a Gamma, a Succubus, a Dramia, or a Daredevil, probably would get a ship that's maybe a bit stronger. Maybe. I mean, and the Cruor is also a ship that a lot of people will run away from. They do not want to fight the Cruor. Anyway, I've got a few clips of you just to show off this the Cruor. It's a weird, fun ship. There are better options, but you can have a lot of fun with this ship, I think. So in this first fight, I'm warping into an NU in a Plex. I don't know if he's blasters or rails. He is kind of off the beacon though. I kind of approach him and go a bit too ham here. Go a bit too close to him. Because I assume that he might be railguns if he's not camping the beacon at 0. He ends up being blasters, so I keep at range at 7.5k. He does get kind of on top of me, but he was actually in a more standard NU fit, not one that was for Lowsec. I panicked and took some boosters when I took a lot of shield damage, but it turns out I didn't actually need to take those. He had a micro warp drive, so I was easily able to clear range, and as you can see, his scram and web just broke, and now he's no longer able to shoot me with his guns because I just completely draining him. And this is the kind of staggering that you want with the Nos, as you can see, where they're like super cycling like half and half with each other, and they're just you can just like permanently keep someone capped out. Like I'm only taking damage from his warrior 2 right now. He can't even shoot me, and that's kind of what you're going for with this Cruor, is just kaiing people at 7k. Denying them the ability to nosh you, which is really important, and you just like turn off their guns, and you can and turn off the tank, or you can completely run your dead space rep while you're draining cap from them. So in this fight, I'm coming in on a Comet, which is inside a Novice. I'm warping in. Comets can normally be fit one of two ways. The most common way in Lowsec is generally railguns with a whole tank and small ancillary. This guy actually ends up being blasters. He's camping the entrance. What I want to do straight away is try and pull range. You can see it actually does a pretty good job of getting on top of me. So I need to heat my things. I also need to heat the Nosferatu too. I do a pretty bad job of staggering the reps though in this case. As you can see, I actually decycle this one and recycle it to stagger them a lot better, so that way I can keep him capped out more. Although I think maybe that was a mistake, because I'm mostly just caring about emptying his cap completely here. So you can see I'm in a bit of trouble here. I'm still trading quite well with him, but I'm forcing him to run his rep right now, which is good for me because it's draining his cap faster. And that's also one of the reasons why you like to have a lot of DPS, is you can pressure people's tank. And as you can see, boom, there goes his scram and web. He does still have the Nosferatu as well, which I'm trying to get away from. That's why I'm trying to get to 7k. Once I get to 7.5k, his Nosferatu will no longer work on me well. I do just debate going back in now because, he is capped out, so okay, he can use the Nos on me, but I don't want him to get away from me because I already have a normal scram. But you can see here, even, in this kind of like worst case scenario, I landed on top of a blaster Comet that was able to stay on me for quite a while. It's still able to survive and eventually break his cap and get away and kill him. So in this case, I'm coming in on a Republic fleet Firetail. Firetail obviously doesn't need cap to run its guns, although normally they rely on a small ancillary and dual webs if it's an artillery fit. This guy's on the beacon, so I kind of assume that he's going to be in an AC fit, although he starts moving away to begin with. So I thought maybe he is artillery. But you can trade well with artillery, even though they can still shoot with you. You have about the same stats as them, and you hit harder than artillery does. Plus, eventually you'll just turn off his ancillary while you can perma-run your dead space rep. So you tend to be able to win a matchup against an artillery Firetail. In this case, he is actually an autocannon fit. And I need to get away from him so that he can't nos me so much, but his ancillary is pretty much turned off. What you can do is pretty hard to see on my UI right now, but you can tell when someone's capped out based on the amount that the is getting drained from the dead space nos. Normally it should drain 18, but if it drains less than 18, you know that they're out of cap. Like normally you'll see like +0, +1, or like +10 instead. You saw the +10 on the UI there, even though it's really bad. I might need to change it. It's pretty hard to see like the individual numbers when like the dead space nos cycles. But if you're getting anything less than 18, you got them capped out. And in that case, you saw the +10 because that was his nos. He drained 10 from his nos, and I immediately took it back. Cruor was pretty fun. But yeah, he was in a pretty standard fit. You can see he only got 5. He still had 5 paste left in his ancillary, so he was only even able to rep with 3 of his paste. It was actually in a more Nosferatu focused fit though. That's actually my dual prop control Firetail fit, which is pretty fun. Okay, so the same dude comes back in a hook bill, so I go in. Just so you know, the hook bill is a much harder fight because it's going to be buffer tanked. He's not going to rely on cap or his tank at all, and also obviously his missiles are also don't require cap either. So he's going to do pretty good damage to me the entire time. My focus in this fight is I want to try and turn off his dual webs if I can. Like if I can get new off his dual webs, then his damage will really fall off. But this is going to be a pretty hard fight, and I actually mess up this fight incredibly badly, as you'll see. I should be heating my dead space rep this entire time. There's no excuse for me not to be repping it. I blame it being 8 AM, but I should have been repping my my dead space rep this entire time. I only stopped heating it now. I could have got like an extra 5 heated cycles on it, and I actually end up losing this fight because I fuck up, and I also didn't have any drugs, like any XR or anything. I think I could have won that fight. It was pretty close if I actually heated my rep. But be careful of Kaldari Navy hook bills, or like ships that don't require cap to shoot in the ship, because they will mess you up, especially if you are a bad pilot like me. I should have had drugs, and I should have heated my A-type rep there. So even though you spend 180 mil on this chip, don't think you're invincible, because if someone outplays you or you outplay yourself, then you're still gonna die. Anyway, I hope you liked this video.